Hello everyone and welcome to the Harrison Tippett Motorsport channel. Today we're going to be looking at the comparison of teammates over the F3 season, which has now come to a close. Let's get straight into it with the Premier team. Now here we have Begovic, Gabriel Mini and Arvid Lindblad. And as you can see, Beganovic surprisingly has got the most race results. This is whoever's come better out of all the three teammates in each race. 10 total races, and Beganovic has got 5 above his teammates. Quality result, it's quite evenly split between Mini and Lindblad. Sprint result though, Beganovic takes it all the way. This might show that maybe Beganovic is qualifying lower down the order, maybe in like 10th to 12th, so he's frequently getting those sprint result victories over his teammates. Total points, as we all know, Mini came second in the championship and is the point leader in the Premier team. However, his two teammates, Beganovic and Lindblad, aren't that far behind. For me, I think Lindblad is very surprising in how well he's done this year against his two more experienced, older teammates. Point finishes, it's all quite even, with Beganovic and Mini having the same amount of 13 point finishes out of the 20 total races, including both sprint and feature races. And then wins, all wins, Lindblad has 4 wins, with Mini only having winning 1. That's quite surprising given he's in the title challenge, but I think Fornaroli didn't win a single one, so that's kind of also shows that consistency is key. And following on that, podiums. If you constantly get a podium, you're going to do well, and Mini got 5 podiums, the same amount as Lindblad. Obviously, it looks like Mini's done a little bit better in the feature races than Lindblad because of those extra points that it awards. I think Beganovic would be kind of a bit upset that he fell behind Lindblad in a lot of these metrics, but I think they'll all get promoted to FT2 next year, so they shouldn't worry. But yeah, a very kind of compelling and interesting fight at Premier this year. Let's hope that continues, because I love to see a team where 3 of the drivers are all battling it out for every point they can. I know that maybe comes to the detriment of each individual's hope to win the Drivers' Championship, but at the end of the day, it makes for great watching. Moving on to the Trident team. Now this holds the winner of F3, Fornaroli, and you can see him in there in the white. He sweeps the board, apart from wins. He didn't get a single win, and Megatonif got 2. I think it shows how kind of poorly the rest of the team did compared to Fornaroli, given these stats. 50% of almost all these metrics are for Fornaroli. He's got 7 race results over his teammates, 6 qualifying results over his teammates, 5 sprint results, 153 points. His teammates combined don't have nearly that many. Point finishes as well, only 2 races in the whole season. Fornaroli didn't score a point. And he didn't win 1 either, so it shows that he's been in that kind of 2nd to 5th range a lot. Because I think he won the championship in the end by 25 points, given Gabriel Mini's disqualification at Monza. So yeah, at Trident, it's a domination by Fornaroli, but Megatonif has still held his head a little bit high and showed that he's better than Ramos at least. Ramos has done okay, but I think ultimately both of these drivers next to him, or at least Fornaroli, have outperformed the car, and also outperformed the team. So yeah, not much Ramos can do there, but he's still got some points and better than some of the other drivers that further down the list, but not as good as Fornaroli. But who is? No one was. Then we move on to MP Motorsport with Dunn, Tim Tremnitz and Kasper Sutska. And it's a 2-way competition. Sutska, after winning Italian F4 last year, had a torrid time of it. I mean, I think he shows up twice in these metrics. He got 6 points for one of a point finish, which must have been around 6th place in a feature race or something. The other metrics are dominated by Dunn and Tremnitz, who are kind of quite even, but most of these fall in the way of the German, the Red Bull German, compared to Alex Dunn, who is, still a solid driver. So a very interesting competition between these two teammates, and it would have been an interesting dynamic in the team, how they kind of respected each other when they had those team meetings going into the sessions. I think Tremnitz has done well enough for a promotion to F2, and maybe Dunn as well. Definitely not Sutska. I think he's one and done after losing that Red Bull sponsorship, so he could leave the series completely. But Dunn, he will at least stay in F3, if not moved up to F2, and Tremlitz I think has secured his place in an F2 team for the next year. Now we have Campos Racing with Mary Boyer, Montoya, and Oliver Goeth. Oliver Goeth is also racing in F2 for the rest of the year, so we can kind of see that maybe he's fully agreed an F2 deal for next year. I think that kind of tracks with his performances he's put in for Campos. Similar to what we saw with Tremnitz, a fellow Red Bull German, he's kind of dominated his teammate pairing. All but maybe the sprint results. So Goeth has 6 race results over the other teammates, 3 sprint results, where I think Boyer has kind of qualified well enough to put himself well in qualifying for the sprint races to end up outscoring Goeth in that regard. But ultimately, points-wise, 15 points for Goeth. And I know it's not a lot of points, but it's still better than his team, and that kind of tracks with like the team hasn't done well as a whole, so it's not just his fault. But as kind of team build-up, he's the one performing week in and week out for that Campos team. And we'll see that he's got a win, so does Boyer. But the podiums, it's 3 podiums for Goeth and 1 each for Montoya and Boyer. I think Montoya's had a struggle of a year. Personally, I expected him to come in and do a lot better, and I even kind of chipped him for an F2 promotion in 2025. I'm not sure if that will come now, given how well the other Red Bull juniors have done and kind of how much money Red Bull have in their purse spending on young drivers. I mean, they have a lot in F3 this year, and they can't find all the seats in F2 with their drivers. It'll be unrealistic. So for me, Montoya will probably be dropped as a Red Bull driver and maybe drop out of the contending for F2. He could stick around in F3. I still give him another year, but not with the significant backing that he received this year. Boyer, I think in his first year, after winning Spanish F4, has done quite well. I think he's set for another good year, maybe fighting hard up the championship in a better team, maybe with a better car, and then maybe take the step up next time. And now we have High Tech, with the utter domination coming for Luke Browning over his teammates Stenstrom and Shields. I mean, Shields was nowhere to be seen all through the F3 season, and he has to make his way out or kind of spend another year learning his craft in the lower ends of F3. Browning was something else in this car which wasn't shown to be that amazing. I mean, Stenstrom got 1 win and 2 podiums with it, so it shows that at the occasion race it was really good, but Browning dominated a lot of different racetracks with this car, which shows that it actually had potential. And maybe that shows how kind of experienced Browning is as a driver. He's one of the oldest in the field at like 21, 22 I think, in F3. So that kind of helps him out with getting those race results, qualifying results, sprint results, points, point finishes, and wins over his teams. So I think it's to be expected, but a 10-0 qualifying performance just shows how consistent Browning was over the season, especially in that kind of middle stint from like the 3rd to the 8th race. He was imperious and just dominant over most of the grid and his teammates. He's definitely in the lining to step up to F2, maybe even sooner rather than later, replacing the Williams-backed O'Sullivan, who might be on his way out. Stenstrom, McLaren bet, I think they would have probably liked him to do a little bit better after kind of backing him halfway through the season. I think he kind of peaked a little bit around that point, but then kind of dropped off again, back to his start of the season performance levels towards the end of the season. So not ultimately what they would desire. I think he'll have another season in F3, because I think he's quite new to the series, but I don't see him making the step up like I see with Browning. Shields, again, he's definitely not making a step up. He might not even make a cut for F3 next year. Then we have Jensen Motorsport, and this is a team who ultimately struggled to score a lot of points. They got, I think it was around 29 points overall, which is not a lot. The race results though is split between Wirtz and Nessersin with 4 each, with Zagazeta having 2. For me, this is one of the most kind of competitive teams. I think similar to Prema, how there's all these 4 drivers who have kind of doing similar performances, and that's like lower down the order, maybe getting a 10th or a 9th or an 8th here or there. As you can see that point finishes as a 1 or 2 each, so not a lot. So when they are throwing points, it's like maybe like a 7 in a feature race. So it's hard to tell when you're not in a car that's scoring performance consistently, so you have to have a look at the qualifying results and the race results instead of like the points. And we can see that kind of Esterson, the American, has done better than his two teammates, I think. But only just. It's been a very close battle there, with only Zagazeta getting a podium. I think, given the kind of question marks over the kind of performance level, and there's no standout, all these guys probably won't get promoted to F2. None of them will, I think. And I think all of them might have another year in F3, or leave the series as a whole, because they haven't shown an outstanding performance that you need to at a small team to kind of take the step up to either a larger team or F2. Moving on to VAR, and No Leon, I think, has deserved a call up to a better F3 team, and maybe even a lower end F2 team. In this VAR team, which hasn't been that great, as shown by Sophia Fleurs and Tommy Smith's performances, he's been very, 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 very good. 79 points in that car versus 12 for Tommy Smith and 0 for Fleurs is very, very good. His race results, 6 victory race results to his teammates, 2 and 2. Qualifying results, similar to Browning, sweeped it. Very consistent qualifying, doesn't been it ever. A very safe, competitive driver. He's definitely shown his merit. And 4 podiums as well for him. I think he's shown that he can get up there and fight for those podiums and those victories, even if he gets a little bit of luck next year, or maybe even an F2 next year. So we'll see, I guess. But No Leon, very, very good. Fleurs, she's getting on a bit. I think there's ever young female drivers coming up through the series, like Evi Pulling and Bianca Bustamante and Dorian Pin. So maybe she won't be like the sole kind of leader in that regard, but I think she's done a very good job in kind of promoting the needs and requirements of having female F1 drivers or female F1 junior drivers in the series. Next up, we have ART, and this is also a very competitive team, and one of my favourites to watch in the year. It was Christian Mansell, Lorenz Van Hoopen, and Nikita Solov. I think Mansell edges out his teammates in kind of most of the regards, given he scored them 112 points to 58 for Van Hoopen and 75 to Solov. But I think in each category they kind of show different things. So Mansell, I think, is the most kind of consistent driver throughout and kind of got those good scoring positions, whereas Van Hoopen kind of had 1 or 2 amazing races where he got on a podium, but then he would have like a couple of races where he would just like get the lowest scoring points positions, like 9th and 10th. Whereas Solov, I feel like he was either win or bust. And maybe that comes with his youth, because he's still very, very young. I think one of the youngest drivers in F3 this year. I think like 17 or 18. So he can definitely learn a lot. So I think 1 more year in F3. I think maybe this is his 2nd year. So another year will kind of do him very, very well and kind of help him compete for the championship. But Mansell, I think he's shown that he's kind of consistent and ready for a step up. I'm not sure how much he's learning still, waiting in F3. So stepping up to F2 is good for him. I think we've seen that this year as well. At the end of the F2 season, he's coming in. So yeah, personally, I think all these guys would perform well in F2. So I can see them all stepping up, and I wouldn't be kind of upset or aggrieved if they did all step up. But I could also see them still staying for 1 more year, and in that year, doing very, very well, because they're kind of shown that they're consistent, solid, reliable drivers. And now we have AAX Racing with Nikita Bedrin, Josh Dufek, and Infrafuzek. Bedrin, he's smoked his teammates, and he almost got that elusive qualifying whitewash with 9 qualifying results to 1 of Dufek. Bedrin got a win, Bedrin got a podium, but so did Infrafuzek, which is very impressive. But yeah, it's clear by these numbers, the amount of blue on that graphic there. Bedrin has smoked his teammates, and he definitely needs to step up. And personally, I'd like to see him go into F2, into that Barnard empty seat in F2, replacing the current guy who is definitely a pay driver, the Dutch fella. So yeah, Bedrin to F2, I'd love to see that, but if not, definitely a higher end Formula 3 team for next year. Joshua Dufek, I think he's done okay, enough to keep, and so has Infrafuzek. They can definitely keep in AX. I think they've done okay. They've shown glimpses of something, as you can see that by their kind of glimpses of colour within the graph. So keep them both for me at PAX or AIX. And yeah, now we have the Roden team, and Callum Voisin has shown that even though this team in F3 is proven that they're terrible, he can still deliver good points. I think the GB3 champion is top gravy. You know, he can definitely make the step up to a higher end F3 team or an F2 team, similar to what we saw with Bedrin and what I was saying about him. With Nicky and Loke, I think both of them have struggled this year. Was Nicky more than Loke? I think most drivers would struggle in that kind of torrid Roden team, but I think towards the end we saw a lot better. We saw them getting their first win in F3 in many years, so hopefully this promotes kind of that they're on their way up through the series and they're going to be a better team next year. Maybe I think the funding from Roden could improve their kind of systems and their personnel, and maybe we'll see a more competitive F3 team from them next year if they manage to keep hold on Voisin. If Voisin does make a step up to F2, he'd be a great guy to kind of keep it a team, and maybe bring in someone like Lewis Sharp, the current champion of GB3, into that team who races for them and kind of set them on a very good path up the order and kind of try and compete for those middle table constructor champion positions. I think Loke and Woznicki, they've struggled a lot. I can see them leaving F3 completely or staying at Roden. I don't think any of the other teams will want to touch either of them, given how bad the car has been. So I don't think Loke has scored a point. No, he scored 8 points. But that's not a lot, given how kind of destructive F3 can be and kind of random it can be at times. 8 and 10 points isn't a lot. I know that there's other drivers that haven't scored a point at all, but that just shows that they're bad. But scoring like 8 to 10 points and your teammates scoring 70 points, it's like, what's going on, guys? Is the car good? Is it bad? Or is it you guys? You can't say, because Voisin is very good. We know that, but we don't know how good was Nicky or Loke are at this kind of level. So question marks over them. With Voisin, can easily get promoted to F2 or higher up F3. Yeah, that's my kind of analysis of the F3 statistics over the last year. Let me know what you think about the statistics. What kind of has called out to you being quite like a surprising statistic? Maybe something you didn't kind of think of. For me, it was Mini. He was so close to the rest of his teammates, but he was so far ahead in points. Not so far ahead, but he was a lot more challenging in points, and he was a lot more in headlines. So maybe that kind of shows how underrated a year Bogdanovic and Lindblad have had. So definitely all three of them should step up to F2 next year, because they've all been great. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Peace.